Hello again, everybody. This is Red, and I'm going to show some more of my favorite baseball cards today. Last time we did this, featured a 52 Topps Jackie Robinson, the 1955 rookie Topps Harmon Killebrew, and a card from 1912, the T227, I believe it is, of Rube Marquardt. So some new cards to show today. I'm going to start today's featured cards with a card that I recently got in an auction for, I think, a really fair price. And it's from the 1922 W503 set, which is a really rare set. Found out it's probably a caramel related set and not actually a strip card set. So these were pre-cut. They weren't hand-cut cards. But this Frankie Frisch is, in my Hall of Famer representative set, going to replace the Gaudy that I had, just because I like representing new sets, and I think that's just a cool looking card. I mean, I think the image is really nice, and it's in his younger years with the New York Giants. He played his career, pretty long career, just with the Giants and the Cardinals, and about half and half. But those early, really good years with the Giants, so this card is with them. Had some World Series appearances there. And found out there are no PSA graded cards of this and only 5 SGC. So total pop report of 5 from both those companies. This is actually the highest graded one at a 1.5. So a card you don't find a whole lot of. One of the more elite Hall of Famers, and he's a guy who almost had 3,000 career hits and like a 316 career batting average, big cog in those World Series teams, and a big time player in Frankie Frisch, and just a really cool looking card. I think it's a blank back. And just pretty cool image. Now the next card I want to show is of a player who might be in that top 5 to 10, most iconic players the game has ever known. Satchel Paige. This is his only Topps card from 1953, St. Louis Browns. He's probably 47 years old at this time. That's by the birth certificate anyway that they found from 1906 of Leroy Page. His mom says he might have been born 2 years sooner than that, which would make him 49 by this age. His birth date on the card actually says 1908, which would make him only 45 on this card. But he's a player that he pitched forever in the Negro Leagues. His main pitching was barnstorming. He's a player that you read about what other Negro Leaguers thought of him, and some of them not. I mean, they all thought really highly of him, but they wondered a little bit about his team playerness, I guess, because he loved to go where the money went, and he probably was the highest paid or highest earning, I guess, player in the 30s and 40s, just because he did go where the money went. He spent some time not even in the Negro Leagues, pitching in North Dakota and some semi-pro teams instead, because that's where the money was, and he barnstormed and made tons of money there. He was, pretty much the leader on teams that pitched against or played against teams put together by guys like Bob Feller and Babe Ruth, and they talked about how good of a player he was. When Joe DiMaggio got a hit off him, and it sounded like just a little infield squibber, when he was first coming up in the mid-1930s out in San Francisco, he even thought, and other people thought, oh, Joe must be big time. He got a hit off Satchel Paige. So he was well respected. Everybody knew about him. Even though he pitched in the Negro Leagues, everybody knew about Satchel Paige. Probably more so than later after he retired. Got picked up by the Cleveland Browns, and so, or Cleveland Indians, excuse me, in 48, and I'll end up showing. I've got one other card of him. There are 2 others that exist. I'd love to have the other one by the time I'm done with the series, and maybe we can show them both. But then after that little time there, the Indians let him go because even though he was pitching well, but they just said they wanted to go more to a youth movement. But then, you know, the Browns ended up with Bill Veeck again picking him up, and just didn't pitch that long there either. But in this 52 season, you can see on the records there, he was actually pretty good for a guy that long in the tooth. 12-10, a 3.07 ERA. His pinpoint control through 138 innings. He started some games. He had a bunch of complete games. He was a reliever in some games. And unfortunately, after this, they let him go as well, citing, you know, we're going more of a youth movement. And again, was after Bill Veeck was gone. And then he ended up pitching more minor league independent kind of ball. After that, pitched a bunch more years in Miami, and he was actually really good there, leading leagues in ERA. But just an iconic player, personality. Satchel Paige. I love this card. I've had it probably since I don't know, I think I picked it up at a card show back in the late 1970s. Old Thunderbird Hotel shows in Bloomington that we'd get one of our parents to drive us to. Actually, it was probably never my parents, but my friend's parents would drive us to before we could drive, which is an hour and a half away, and he'd take us to the cities. And got to actually see a bunch of cards and buy cards. You know, I always loved old cards ever since I started collecting. We didn't have any card shops around or card shows close by. We'd get cards through things like the Trader Speaks and Sports Collectors Digest, and then traveling off to these cards, and that's how we got cards like the Satchel Paige. It's one that, man, I love it. Just a cool looking card that I've had for a long time. And we'll talk more about Satchel when I show some other cards of him. So now we're going to shift from a player whose career spanned decades to instead a player whose career was pretty short, kind of Koufax-esque, had a just fabulous 7-year span. From age 25, which was his first full year, until his last really good year, and when his arm petered out, which was age 31, and that was Big Ed Walsh. And in those 7 years, he was just dynamite, and I think this is just a dynamite card. Look at the color on that Cracker Jack background, and like I like all my Cracker Jack cards to have a little caramel staining. This one's got some, not a lot, but just enough. It's got the upside down back, which distinguishes it as a 1915 compared to a 1914. Cracker Jack, talk a little bit about him. I'm going to try to, you can kind of see how thick that card is. Pretty thin, although the 15s were a little more to them than the 14s. But you can see that. I'm going to put it in a little sleeve here, so we can see the full card sitting. As we talk a little bit about Big Ed Walsh. Now, Big Ed had a really good fastball, but in addition to that, he might have thrown the best spitball around. And another Hall of Famer, Sam Crawford, you see there on his E102. Sam described Ed Walsh, I'm going to read it here, that I think that ball disintegrated on the way to the plate, and the catcher put it back together again. I swear, when it went past the plate, it was just the spit that went by. Now, he had really good control of his fastball and his spitter. Probably his best year was 1908. And that year, he was the last pitcher ever to win 40 games. He went 40-15 with a 1.42 ERA in 464 innings. Man, struck out a league-leading 269 and only walked 56. So not only did he win 40 games, but he led the league in saves that year too with 6, which he did 5 times in his career. And by the way, that's the last time anyone has won 40 games in a season, and the last time anyone has thrown 400 innings in a season. And, you know, you think, man, 400 innings, no one's come close to that in modern day. But actually in my baseball watching career, the very beginning of my baseball watching career, Oh, if anybody remembers this guy, Wilbur Wood, left-handed knuckleballer, same team, Chicago White Sox, that Big Ed played almost his whole career with. And you can see that 1972 season, he threw 377 innings, 49 starts, and he was pretty dang good. Did 2.51 ERA. And that was in a year there it was actually a little bit strike shortened. They lost like 8 games, so probably still wouldn't have got to 400, but pretty close. So Wilbur Wood. But back to Big Ed. And then in 1910, he led the league with a 1.27 ERA. And that year he went 18-20. So it kind of sounded DeGrom-ish from his years with the Mets. But the White Sox really weren't all that bad in his whole career. In fact, his first full season, 1906, where his team won the World Series. The White Sox beat the Cubs, and he pitched a game in that World Series where he had a strikeout in each of the 9 innings of the game. And there's only one other player who has done that, and that was this Bob Gibson, 1968 year of the pitcher season. The opener, he struck out 17 in that game, and he had at least 1 in every inning. Now, Trey Savage from the Blue Jays this last year had 1 in every inning, but didn't go the full game, pitched just 7 innings. But the big stat from Big Ed is in his 5 straight years of having ERAs under 2, he ended with a lifetime ERA this is, of 1.82, which is the best still, and probably forever will be, in Major League history. So that's it. These are the 3 cards we featured today, kind of as we get down there in, I hate ranking cards, but these top 50, 60, wherever I'm at, getting to some pretty cool iconic cards. And thanks for hanging out with me and watching today. We'll see you again next time.